Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Milan After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network. I am, of course, the host, Milan, with my co-host, Rock and Rant. I hope everybody's having a good Sunday. I was watching the women's hockey game. It is now in overtime, but I don't want to drop dead of a heart attack, so I have switched the screen to the white screen so the backdrop will show up. I am just going to wait for Ryan Willie to come in here and start dunking on me that the Lady Badgers beat Ohio State for the national championship. But how are you doing today, Rock?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to the show. Looking to see how we can get misquoted wildly all week after it.
Oh, sure. People love to do that. They, sometimes you have to have a reading comprehension above that of a fourth grader, and some people are too busy replying with their own sock accounts to understand that. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, I think the one thing I will say, though, is that clearly all of us were giving the benefit of a doubt to one specific university out there losing AAU status and attributing it to, their medical campus not being on their campus. I think we now know it's through the quality of education with some of their alleged graduates, especially English as a first or second language.
Definitely. Swedish meatballs, my friend. Swedish meatballs. Let's go ahead and say hi to some people in chat. I know we might not be super busy tonight, guys. I know NCAA basketball's on, ladies hockey's on, but we'll talk here. Friends call me Sean. Moen, are you going to make any sense this show, or are you still stuck in your big non-athletic metrics ideology? Signed, Bomber. Indeed I am stuck in that. Yeah, I mean, because athletics are such a huge metric, that's why the SEC wants Virginia and North Carolina. Those two power brands are first up on the block because of athletics. Nate's entitled to his opinion, but I do believe that you're going to add somebody to a conference, you're going to add them for everything. And that includes athletics, but there are other things that you have to factor in.
Yeah, things are changing wildly, and it's not just the House settlement. So can't stick with what you definitely think has been the past, because no one necessarily expected a bunch of national universities to be worried about the grants they were getting money-wise.
Absolutely. And I will say this, I am working on a project with you, and it'll be our next members-only live stream. It will be called The Contenders. And we will take a look. We'll do a little Sesame Street game. One of these things is not like the other. And we'll take some data points and figure out who is the Big Teniest of Big Ten contenders out there. And we'll rate them, see where some need improvement, see where some are already exceeding expectations. So it should be fun. Hopefully we're going to do that this week, but it depends on how busy I am this week, because it's a lot of work, a lot of data points. Ryan Willie's in the house. He says, hi, CFM. Hey, Ryan, I know you're not here right now. You're watching the game. When you're ready, come in here and dunk on me and tell me the Badgers won. I wanted to have him here for this show, but I am in the process. Guys, we're going to have a baby Badger possibly on Moen After Dark. A legitimate baby Badger from a rescue operation. She's going to come in and talk to us a little bit about it, so it'll be a fun day. We'll look for that, because I think that's going to happen, and I might have to kiss that baby Badger.
You know what the interesting thing is? That baby Badger might actually have better hot takes on college football than a lot of people we run across.
It's true. It's very true. But apparently they are a smelly little creature, so I'll make sure I'm wearing something not so nice for that. But yes, Ryan, come in here and dunk on me after you guys win that in overtime, because I'm sure you will. Stormy Cyclones here, Iowa State. Awesome graphics, Moan. Hope it comes to fruition for the Big 12. We will be talking about the Big 12 in Kansas and the Big 12 RedBird Capital deal, and what the latest I've heard on that is. Ryan Willie, after next week, I'll be taking a break from YouTube. I have other interests that I like, not just college football. Well, enjoy those interests. I know he's a Brewers fan. Says, go Brewers. Like I said, just make sure you pour one out on the statue of Bob Uecker for me.
Though every interest I know to man is actually on YouTube. Like there's niches that you never knew existed.
It's true because I've operated several of those niches. Plus, I'm losing patience with people that don't want to hear other people's opinions. Duly noted. We know who you're talking about. They know more. Nathan Campbell says, hi, guys. Hey,
What's up, Nathan?
What conference has the best NCAA record this year?
It was it was Big 12 as of last night by like by like a game, but I don't know about percentage, and I haven't really seen anything about what happened so far today to change everything or anything. Yeah, I know it's not the SEC, and I know it's not the ACC, and it's not the Big East.
For the first time in my life, I bet on some tournament basketball. I did a 4-game parlay. 4th game fucked me.
So,
Hit the first 3. That so nothing changes. Creighton could not cover. Damn you, Creighton. Bob Swanger says, hey, everyone. Good to see you, Bob. Vox Quindaro, good evening. And Rock Chalk, fellers.
Moen, I just want to say I believe that you will be misquoted now as saying that Creighton is going to the Big Ten because they underperform on bets and therefore they're a good parlay.
We don't have enough birds in the conference, so we have to add the Creighton Blue Jays. I think they're the Blue Jays.
Yes. I heard it right. Guys, he said they're going to the Big Ten. Yeah. Make sure you spread it all over Twitter. Hey, Genetics, how you doing, man?
Caleb Ramirez says, hi, all. Good to see you, Caleb. Vox Quindaro, he got the reference. Give me more Dick Dale. That's right. It's a very Dick Dale sounding intro and outro song. Of course, my favorite being Water or Miserlou, the theme for Pulp Fiction. But that's copyrighted and they won't let me use that one. The Big Lubbock says, hello, MAD. Good to see you. Jose says, Mafia, Georgia Tech. Mafia drank. I got a little bit of whiskey left here, but I might have to really. Oh, did they win, Ryan? I see Ryan's in chat now. I'm assuming they won. I stopped watching in overtime.
You know, Moen, for the first time, I just realized that Moen After Dark is abbreviated MAD. So I guess right now you could get mad if Ryan's correct.
True. I'm sure Ryan's correct if he's in here saying on Wisconsin. Don in Kansas says, hello, everyone. Good to see you, Don. Stormy Cyclone, hello, Rock and Moen. Game time in 45 minutes. We'll chat till then. Okay. Good luck to the Stormy Cyclones of Iowa State.
I'm very jealous of everyone who has game time in 45 minutes when I'm counting 156 days till the next game I care about.
BYU football's in the house. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. John Boxleitner. No Big Ten expansion without Roger Moore. Yes, I stand by it. I think Roger Moore is the best Bond.
What is the best Bond? What's the best Bond song then?
Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon.
That's good. I actually like A View to a Kill too, which is probably the only song I like of them.
We talked about this on Twitter with Vox Quindaro. That was actually the first James Bond movie I saw, and I didn't see it till I was in my 30s.
Wow.
And then I went back and watched all the Bond films. So, but yes, Dance Into the Fire by Duran Duran. That was a great opening sequence in that Bond movie too, with the Dayglow skiers and
Duran Duran to the Big Ten. I bet.
Duran to the Big Ten. Friends call me Sean. Look forward to the Vid Mayor. Thank you. Appreciate the new hat. I am the mayor of Titty City. The dude's sources at FSU, Clemson, UNC, UVA to SEC, and Notre Dame schedules 5 games with SEC instead of ACC. ESPN outpaced Fox and won't need scheduling alliance with Big Ten anymore. Maybe. Maybe. The dude abides.
I was going to say, is it the dude, as in the dude abides, or some random dude on Twitter, or is that Jose calling himself the dude?
Jose's a West Coast guy. It must be the dude because he's not Mr. Lebowski. He's the dude. Friends call me Sean says I could see the SEC working with Notre Dame on a scheduling agreement to keep the Irish out of the big. Greg Pflugar's here. Greg was very kind to join us on Friday night and discuss some expansion stuff. Thanks for stopping in, Greg. Apparently, Ohio State lost that hockey game, but I stopped watching in the overtime, Greg. My heart couldn't take it no more. I've got to lose some weight. Jose says, no big expansion without Sean Connery, sexy hairy back.
You know, Joe, I finally got that image out of my head today after it came up on Friday, and I told you I'd never get it out, and you just put it right back in. Thanks for bookending my weekend with hairy back conversations. I appreciate it.
Badgers are mean as hell, Moen. I came across one rabbit hunting once, and I couldn't kill it. It started coming after the back of the truck I was standing in. Yes, badgers are very vicious things. I've been told by the wildlife rescue this is a small baby badger. They're still bottle feeding it. It should not have any issues with it. But if I get mauled on camera, I mean, hey, that'll be a great clip, right?
You better be careful that you don't tamper with the badger.
True. Ryan Willie says, on Wisconsin. Congratulations, Ryan Willie. I really thought Ohio State had a chance there, but of course, a dumb penalty. And BYU football reminds us, though, that BYU dropped Wisconsin like a bad habit last night. You only live twice, Nancy Sinatra. That is a really good one, too, Vox. I do like that. That is one of the better ones.
There are so many good ones from the old school like that down to Adele. It's pretty amazing how much they hit on their theme songs.
Big Lubbock, he likes Shirley Bassey. He likes Goldfinger. I can't blame you. That's a catchy song. The alternative hypothesis, relative rating of athletic, non-athletic factors for Big Ten expansion, 50-50, 60-40. Alternative hypothesis. Right now I have 9 data points. 9 data points, and we're working on number 10 and 11. And what we will do is we will take what we consider the contenders and we'll put them up against some data points and see who matches best. And athletics plays a part in it. But it's not the only part. John Boxleitner says, Live and Let Die by Paul McCartney and Wings. It's a great song, too. Yeah. Living
Absolutely.
Daylights. Or no, that wasn't the Living Daylights.
No, that was Live and Let Die, namesake movie theme song.
Okay. That's the one with Delta Card. Okay. Coy says, Illinois can't hold on to the damn ball. So many turnovers. This game is insane. Jose Correxis says, no, that guy on X is the dude. Oh, the dude from West Virginia. Okay. The Spy Who Loved Me by Connor Stallion. I'll allow it. I will allow it.
That's a good cover song.
Hey, y'all, guns up. Numbskull News says, hey, it's still light outside, not in Ohio, because it's been overcast all day. And it's been miserable.
It's dark somewhere, man.
Dark somewhere, that's right.
We got at least 1 or 2 viewers where it's dark.
Mm-hmm. And then Bob Swinger says, hey, Nathan, how have you been? All right, let's kick this pig off the right way here. Let's talk a little bit about the Big 12, RedBird Capital. We heard 3 weeks ago, deal was almost done, close to being done, imminent, at the goal line. We have seen that in recent days be walked back. I have also heard that it has been stunted a little bit. Certain people who were possibly warming up to the idea of a capital investment are now cooling on it. They do not want to be locked in. As you can imagine, this is directly a result of what happened with the ACC. Where there's hope, there's a way, and for some, they believe that there might be as many as 8 no votes in the Big 12 now. There are at least 2 I know of, 2, and there's about 3 that I think I've got figured out. The 2 I do know of that are absolute no's are Kansas and TCU right now. So,
So pause there. I'm going to ask you questions because we haven't spoken about it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the broad thing is. So let's go back to before the ACC settlement, because this news dropped, if I'm not mistaken, timeline wise, before the ACC settlement, that there was a possible situation, and then there was speculation if it was just like everybody letting everyone know this was about to happen, if it was public pressure to get the last stragglers on board, kind of thing. So if before the ACC news, do you think that the people who were no's are the same ones we're hearing now? Was it a Kansas TCU issue, or was it more of, potentially other schools, whether they were state or the few privates that had a concern pre-ACC? Like, let's start there, in your opinion.
I think there were some people who were on the fence but warming up to it. And I think once that ACC news hit, they got off the fence and they chilled to it. Were Kansas and TCU always knows? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I just heard this week from somebody close to the Kansas program that Kansas was a definite no and TCU was a definite no. And the reason being, again, they have this feeling that if there's a chance that they can get into the Power 2, either SEC or Big Ten, they don't want to lock into it. But the actual deal itself, the money's all there. Everything's been negotiated. I don't know that Yormark's going to, quote unquote, land the plane or get this thing across the finish line.
So Kansas has, so if we go with those 2 that you're hearing, right? Kansas has been discussed broadly in different scenarios. Like if we just said the SEC and or the Big Ten could theoretically someday go to 24 schools, right? Some larger number, 20 schools maybe for the SEC. It's been floated out there that Kansas, because they are AAU, they bring basketball as well, could be a Big Ten. They would be a natural fit into the SEC of another state with the built-in rivalry with Missouri. It doesn't really have like their biggest rivalry. That one, I think you can understand that theory. The TCU one, I think, is the more interesting question of how do they perceive themselves, or what's like the feeling there, why they wouldn't be locked in, because they're not necessarily school. I know Numbskull News is in the chat, who has been necessarily proclaimed to be out there of, not that they would want P2 aspirations, but that in the pecking order that everyone's rumoring and just conjecturing about would be there. So like, what are you hearing or guessing on the TCU side, and sort of tell us what's hearing versus your conjecture?
From the TCU side, they believe their media market makes them a desirable target. But they also believe they have a lot of work they have to do in terms of getting their research up. They are right now in R2, I believe. They want to try and get to an R1, try to get AAU status. They do have a very small enrollment. There's a lot more working against TCU than working for TCU at this point. But again, if there's a 10% chance, it's these schools are basically saying we're not going to commit long term if even the slightest possibility. And don't misquote me. I'm not saying TCU.
You will be misquoted. Creighton's going to the Big Ten. Creighton's going to the Big Ten.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that TCU, Kansas are both against getting locked in. And they're both against getting locked in because they think they might have options.
And if that's the case, then because locked in, we don't know that. Well, maybe you have heard more. Where the Big 12 deal, we don't know whether it's a 5-year deal through like 2030 to 2031 contract negotiations. I know they're separate, but they could be considered related in some way, or if it's a 10-year deal. If it's a 4 or 5-year deal that's on the table, then if they're not wanting to do because they don't want to be locked in, then they're conjecturing that movement's going to happen in the next couple of years, right? So they don't want to be locked in. If the deal that's on the table is 10 years with a longer timeline and they think a chance, like that makes more sense. But if they think if the deal on the table is for a 5-year infusion, that means that those two schools think that chaos is going to happen before the 5 years.
Possibility. Again, I don't know the exacts of I don't think anybody outside of the room knows the exact details of the deal.
Right.
I don't know if there's an exit clause where you pay some of the money back, but if you're private capital, you don't really want to invest in a conference that might lose. Like Kansas is a huge brand for Big 12. I know they had an early exit this year in the tournament, but that's still a big brand.
Right, for
sure. Colorado's the same way. You don't want to lose Colorado. I understand that most of that's tied to Coach Prime, but you don't want to lose a Colorado. And then you've got schools that have other reasons for not wanting to be a part of it. I mean, I'd imagine probably BYU is not really keen on this simply because they have a morals code. And one of the things these intellectual property rights usually deal with is gambling, sports betting. And they may not want their university associated with that. So there's other reasons that people might be saying no other than they think, hey, I've got a shot at the Big Ten or I got a shot at the SEC. But
right.
There are definitely people who are saying no because they believe that, even if it's just a really, really small percent.
Okay, so well, beyond those two, what else did you pick up on everything?
That was pretty much it. That
yeah.
Pretty much that they thought they were very, very close, and they said a couple weeks ago it would be in a few weeks, but now the term I was told was holding pattern. So I don't know where it's going to go. That whole Connecticut thing, obviously you're not taking Connecticut now. If private capital is still insisting that you have to take Connecticut to get the New York market, you're telling them, no, you don't want to waste a spot on Connecticut when you could potentially get Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and North Carolina State. Maybe that's a holdup. That could be one of the holdups too.
Another interesting thing, for a lot of the last couple of years, there's been varying conversations up and down about media. The media market, is it good or bad? Like 2 years ago, everyone's like the media market's bad, and then everyone keeps talking about the media market being bad. Then the NBA does a record deal because they're thinking globally, right? It doesn't matter if the U.S. ratings are going down. It's not just about U.S. viewership anymore in that sport. It's a little bit different in college football. But with, let's just say, the volatility of the economy right now, how long does that offer stay on the Big 12's table to consider? Like that's nothing that but that's like one of those like theoretical questions of how long does this offer there at the rate it is in the volatility we have now. Those private equity guys it's a question of, do you have a gazillion or a lot of gazillion? It's all relative.
Yeah, and I don't know the answers to that. I wish I did. I really do. I don't even know if RedBird wanted Connecticut in. We know that one private capital company did.
Right.
I don't know if that was RedBird, but I'd imagine if that was RedBird, that's definitely going to hold the deal up now, because if I'm the Big 12, I'm not taking UConn. I'm not filling up on bread before the steak comes out. So,
well, like Genetics said, Big 12 basketball was like seriously overrated 6 weeks ago. Now it's it was 9-1 or something as of yesterday going into the tournament. So things change despite expertise and big pontification. So.
Absolutely. We got a super chat from our friend Ryan Willie. Wisconsin women's hockey national championship number 8. Congratulations. I don't agree with that call at the end. I don't believe she slid it under her. I don't agree with the penalty shot. But, sir, you were right. You won. You won the bet. And if you're still listening, I'm in the process. We're going to try and get a baby badger here on Mowing After Dark. And I will kiss the badger. So I know you've got other interests, but I'm sure you want to see me kiss a baby badger. So stay tuned for that one. Let me give you a sounder here. Since you are winners, I will give you the winner sounder as soon as I can find it.
Winner.
Congratulations to the Wisconsin Lady Badgers hockey team on their 8th national championship. Heartbreaking loss for the Ohio State Lady Buckeyes. Steel Austin wants to know, where is Titty City? Asking for a friend. Wherever I take my shirt off, pal. I got a big old set of them. I got a big old set of them bitch tits. Numbskull News, folks need to get on board or go to the pack. I hear you, Numbskull News, but one of those no's is TCU, so I don't know.
The call from inside your house there, brother.
Yes.
Can't wait to see that next post, though.
MBM, how about Gable Stevenson upset yesterday? That was fantastic. Myself and Becky Go Huskies were chortling to ourselves in the group chat. Gable Stevenson should never, ever have been even allowed to come back and wrestle. I am so happy for that kid that he beat Gable Stevenson. Congratulations to him, and I think he's got a bright future if he wants to go towards the Olympics. BYU football, congratulations on the Natty, Wisconsin. I'm sure he appreciates that. John Dry says Titty City's in Vegas. Titty City's wherever you want to make it. There is no chance for the Big Two for any Big 12 team. I think there's probably a chance, Numbskull. Now, whether or not it's a significant chance,
Is it more than a Dumb and Dumber chance?
Yeah. I mean, Kansas is going to be the most, because, like you said, that's one that could basically flip either way. That could go to a Big Ten. That could go to the SEC. If the Big Ten really wants a national brand, a national footprint, they're going to have to get into Texas somehow. So of the schools in Texas, do you take TCU because of the market, or do you take Texas Tech because they got a billionaire booster out there right now spending money? Again, I'm not saying that. I'm putting it out there.
No, you just said it. Texas Tech and TCU and Kansas are all going to the Big Ten. You will find the breaking news on Twitter with the guy using a fake picture from 8 years ago. Any minute now. Any minute.
Kansas needs to stop daydreaming about getting into another conference and worry about fixing our basketball situation. I 100% agree. The strength of Kansas is their basketball brand. You have to build off the strength. You've done a fantastic job with football. You got a new stadium built. You got Leopold locked down. I know it wasn't a great year last year after losing Kodal Nicky to Penn State, but you're making improvements there as well. But listen, where there's hope, people are going to continue to follow it. So, MH Ortho 12, Miami, Duke, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Stanford, Cal. Let's ride big. I see some schools on there I would agree with. What do you think about that as a lineup? You're a Miami fan. How would you like to be in that lineup in the Big Ten?
I mean, that looks like pulling an inside straight if you were to hit all of those, right? I'm excited about two of them.
The only one that would
but I don't
concern me
really
would be Cal.
Cal's the inside straight, like inside.
Yeah.
You just have to pull the random, or you're pulling like the royal flush on with two cards at the end. Like, it's not impossible, but I don't think there's a lot of multiverse scenarios where it plays out. Except for, actually, we just predicted Miami, Duke, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Stanford, and Cal to the Big Ten. We said it. It's a fact.
Definitely. If you were,
we weren't at all just like responding to a comment at all. Like, we definitely said it. Unblock me and come at me, brother. Let's see how tough you are when you can talk to somebody instead of blocking everyone that disagrees with you.
Definitely. By the way, we will go over all the candidates, and I have included Big 12 candidates in there as well. Again, this is just a system to see how they match up to existing Big 10 institutions. It is not a guarantee. It is not a percentage. It is none of that. We're just going to take data points and analyze the data and see who fits where, who's a good puzzle piece.
This is specifically a Big Ten model that you're running, right?
Yes, it will. It would only be for the Big Ten. Now we could do it with the SEC as well. We might do that after the fact, but I think there's just less candidates for the SEC. TCU, but they beat Michigan in the college football playoff. Yes, and it was wonderful. Thank you, TCU. I will forever be a TCU fan because of that. Just like I'm always an Appalachian State fan. Conundrum: if the Big Ten wanted to plant their flag in Texas, then Dallas is a good call. Yeah, I think that's what TCU's relying on. I think they think the strength of their media market overcomes some stuff. But again, we'll put it up there when we'll see how they match up with other contenders. And I promise nobody will be in a swimsuit, no matter what Ute wants. The Big Lubbock, I heard Utah and Texas Tech were hard nosed. I haven't heard that, but I assumed that based on the fact that Texas Tech, again, thinks that if the Big Ten wanted to plant a flag in Texas, Utah, because Utah believes they need a 6 West Coast team, maybe it's Utah and not Cal.
So crazy.
Clint Moses, all those no's for staying in the United Big 12. Well, you can be united and disagree. There's no problem with disagreeing with each other. Nobody's forcing anybody to sign anything. So
the flip side about that, though, is at least in the ACC, you know everybody's got a knife out.
Yeah. That's true. Numbskull, if Big decides to go to 24, I think ASU has a shot. Big Metro. Lots of research money. We'll get more into that during the members only stream, Sean. But I will tell you this: the one thing that is a big hurt for ASU is the fact that they're attached to the University of Arizona, and you're going to have to deal with politics.
Well, if Cal and UCLA was like one person's purse, and if NC State's a backpack for UNC. What is the ASU to UA? Is it like a whole big carry-on bag that you have to check?
Well, let's see. What rhymes with Wildcat? I don't know. Wildcat thumbtack. There you go.
Moving van.
Yeah, but I mean that's a situation. The Big Ten is not looking to get into another UCLA Cal situation again. So they might avoid Arizona State. I think it hurts Arizona State. I'm sure if they're looking to expand, they will look at him as a candidate. Numbskull Nose says if Big Ten goes to 24, then most everyone has a shot. Don't believe that's happening. Okay. John Dry says, I think some Big 12 schools are probably trying to get to the Power 2. Yeah, and you can't blame them. Can't blame them. Don't begrudge people that make that are successful. The Big Lubbock, Texas Tech is the highest valued school. Why does Texas Tech want to sign a deal that gives everyone $250 million when Texas Tech is worth $600 million? None of the Big 12 schools, in my opinion, are crazy additions. Rather, just split the ACC and go to Notre Dame. Let the SEC have Big 12 teams. Maybe I'd take Utah, Colorado. Yeah, the fact, guys, we have to remember, too, the East Coast schools are just going to be more valuable because they're in the East Coast. Higher populations, wealthier populations for advertisers.
Just it's a reality. Land doesn't impact ratings.
Yes, the SEC knows UVA sucks at football, has been middling at basketball recently, and they still want them bad. There's a reason for that. They want the market. They want the eyeballs that it brings in. They want the academics. They want that wealthy alumni base. Don in Kansas says, I don't think the SEC are big. We'll go past 20 teams apiece. The Big Ten, I don't know. I don't know. I think they might. Steel Austin says big SEC are going to 24.
Conferences have an issue with math. You know, we have Pac-12, which might be the Pac-8, was a Pac-8, then became the Pac-10. Big Ten is still the Big Ten, even though it's got however many schools. Like, I don't think we really know. You know, I know the whole realignment conversation on YouTube and social has always been about additive values, and there's definitely that. But like when the NBA expands, almost every single market they do is dilutive theoretically at this point, right? There are other reasons that they also make money off of it. They get an expansion fee, as an example, right? That the owners all divvy up. They have more merchandise sales. There are other reasons, and you don't hear ESPN going, well, you added Las Vegas, right, which is a huge city, but is nothing size-wise to Chicago, LA, New York, right? It's maybe in the middle. It's not the exact same thing. College football, like that has been a large part of the conversation because we're talking about what happens in the middle of a deal or before a deal gets up. It's very different when schools are already in. Now the whole conference is negotiating a new deal with a set amount of members, as opposed to what you do when the deal renewal is X amount of years and you don't have specific terms in there to onboard somebody else. They're not the exact same conversation, in my opinion, at least.
And again, just can't look at those cities. You got to look at those suburbs too. Where are the suburbs growing? What's the median salary? What's the average home value? Those
what companies have HQs in that market and support that brand?
We always joke on the channel about who buys a car for Christmas. That somebody does because they're advertising to them. So I think they think that, you know, if you've got a UVA, that's one of those ones you can advertise a car for Christmas. MH Ortho says ACC will be open season and Notre Dame can boost money. No Big 12 school is a money booster or, frankly, an academic booster either. Kansas is AAU. They do have some research. They would boost the academics of either conference they join, not significantly for the Big Ten, but for the SEC, having another AAU school would be a big deal. They do want to try and get more of those.
If you really want to think deep, and I don't know that this is really in play, if you're the Big Ten or the SEC and you get Kansas, the other thing you might get is 2 more votes in the Senate on something you need, you know, X amount of more votes from the House. I mean, I don't know that anybody's thinking it completely through that way. I'm just throwing out maybe a little sprinkles on the Sunday.
Don in Kansas brings up a great point. I'd like to address this. I don't think there are enough additive teams to get both the SEC and Big past 20 teams each. And this was a point I tried to make to Nate on Friday. It's about more than athletics. These are conferences. Yes, athletics are involved. Yes, they want the highest media revenue payout they can get. But they also want to work with like-minded institutions, have the same culture. And some of these, you've got to look at it as an investment. Again, Nate, it's like, I mention Georgia Tech all the time. People go, well, Georgia Tech sucks. That's Georgia. Atlanta is a Georgia Bulldog country. Everybody loves the Georgia Bulldog. I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying there's a lot of Big Ten alumni, though, who moved to Atlanta for jobs. It's got some of the wealthiest growing suburbs in America. You have to look at that as an investment. So you're right. People might not tune in to see Georgia Tech, but if you're a Purdue fan, let's say you went to Purdue and Purdue's playing in Georgia Tech, you're going to go to the stadium. You're going to watch the show. Some of this is an investment. Some of it's looking at a futures market.
Right. Well, the other thing too, Moen, is, and tell me if you think I'm off base here. I do get the whole additive part. I get it, especially right now when both deals are X amount of years down the road, right? In theory, unless people buy out. But if you knew, for example, in the Big Ten that Florida State was going to be in, and that contract comes back up in 2030, 2031, whatever year that is, when they're having a negotiation with their partners and they look at the entire roster of schools in there, FSU is not dilutive to the entire roster. They're actually probably in the middle to upper third of the teams that have value for that deal when it comes up again, right? Like things right now, it's because things are already set that it's that way. But they're looking at the whole thing collectively at that time with a few years worth of ratings when you bring those schools in and prove their additive value. Right now, all these valuations are done off of Florida State and Clemson as two examples playing against an ACC schedule, which means their ratings are going to be relatively depressed to a schedule which involves, if they got into the Big Ten, playing, games against the SEC, if that whole deal comes together, plus games against Michigan, all these other things. It's easy to look at it that way, and I could be 100% wrong, but I actually don't think that I am.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong. You're going to have to look at projections. You can look at cold hard data, but then you have to extrapolate that and look at future projections. And again, I mentioned it. Greg mentioned it as well. Washington and Oregon coming to the Big Ten. Washington was an academic ad. Oregon was the football. You had a blend. So when people say, well, no Georgia Tech, if you take a Miami or a Florida State, you've got your football. Georgia Tech brings your academics. And it brings a market that's a top 10 market that's growing. So we could see a situation where there's a blend. I think Clemson might end up in the Big Ten, but they're going to have an academic school to come with them. I just don't see the Big Ten saying, okay, let's add Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and Georgia, Notre Dame, and whoever the biggest brands are. I think you have to have a blend. Bob Swanger says, the only way I see the big going past 20 is if Notre Dame comes in and they want to bring a couple teams with them, which they could. Notre Dame has a lot of power in this. If they agreed to join the conference, they basically could name 3 teams to come with them, and they would cover themselves in full freight for 3 teams. My guess is, though, Notre Dame would get a full share, and whoever else is coming along in the next expansion is taking a half share for the rest of the media deal. And they're going to have to make their own investment to support the Big Ten network. Greg Nelson says, F them. Lock Kansas and TCU out. Louisville, Memphis, UConn, Gonzaga, San Diego State. I don't think the Big 12 wants to do that. I definitely don't think they want to get rid of Kansas. Agree the SEC doesn't go past 20, but can see the Big at 20, 22, or 24. I tend to agree with that. I think the SEC would stick at 20, assuming they get North Carolina and Virginia. I still think the most likely scenario is they could end up with Clemson and Florida State by ESPN's hand, basically. Vox Quindaro, KU has picked a hella great time to face plant in men's basketball. 2 worst seasons in over 30 years. Yeah, it didn't seem to work out. Your football came up and your basketball went down.
Yeah, tough year for a lot of blue bloods in hoops, even if they got to the tournament.
John Dry says, if Notre Dame doesn't join a conference, I see only a Power 3 scheduling each other without FCS and Notre Dame. I just see a 3-conference. That's where we're going to. I think we're going to a 3-conference model. You're going to have the Big Ten, you're going to have the SEC, and you're going to have the Big 12. The ACC is still going to exist out there in some form, but it's going to be a shell of what it once was. I think they're going to get rated pretty hard.
Yeah, my new one is that they're, and this won't become a thing, but they might as well just call themselves the ABC conference. It's because it's basically going to be half AAC and half ACC. So just meet in the middle and call it the ABC in honor of the network that destroyed the conference.
There you go. If the Big 12 had some real brands and Notre Dame associations about to break it up, then their schools would be open season as well. Michigan and Ohio State aren't diluting money for any Big 12 mid-tier school. As I've said before, and I will continue to reiterate, Ohio State and Michigan are fine doing shared revenue with everybody in the Big Ten. If they wanted to ask for more revenue, they could absolutely, just based on the numbers, go in and say, pay us twice what everybody else is getting. And the Big Ten would have to acquiesce to it. But they don't. Again,
because they already have a big revenue gap.
Yeah.
They get it from other ways. They get it from sold out 106,000 seat stadiums, right? They get it from merch sales that matter. They get it from brand deals that will always be bigger by nature. So they have that disparity gap. They also don't want to be playing a bunch of schools that are 1-11 every year.
Yeah, and I think the money's going to be there. I don't think anybody's going to dilute. There's going to be some kind of money structure from your media partner to add some of these schools. We know NBC is not really particularly fond of the Big Ten deal they ended up with. They did get some good games this year. They had that Oregon-Ohio State game, which I believe was the biggest rated game for the Big Ten outside of Ohio State, Michigan. So, but they did have to do some horse trading with Fox to get that. So NBC would like probably a few more valuable teams to make more marquee matchups. They would probably enjoy having a Miami, having a Notre Dame, definitely a Notre Dame. But yeah, they would probably like some more name brands. They would like to get more marquee matchups. Are they going to help pay for it?
Just look and see what happens on week 1 games. You're going to have Miami, Notre Dame, solo game on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. There's another huge game on Monday with an ACC brand playing big schools. That's kind of what the projections look like down the road for certain teams and certain schools, assuming those programs all keep performing at a good level, let alone a great
level. Steel Austin. Consolidating to 48 teams allows the big SEC to include enough of the country without risking antitrust Congress getting involved. I don't think they're going to risk that anyway because it's not antitrust. I think the Big 12 is still going to exist out there. The ACC is going to exist out there. The Pac-12 is going to exist out there. The Mountain West is going to exist out there, and they're all going to have access to the college football playoff. If they cut them off from access, then you would have an antitrust violation. Don in Kansas says there is very little support outside of the administration at Kansas. Who wants Kansas to leave the Big 12? No one I know wants it. No one. Okay.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm obviously not in the mix there with Kansas, but I guess I don't personally understand why, if you're Kansas, you wouldn't want to be in the Big 10 or the SEC versus the Big 12. No disrespect to the Big 12. And I don't even think it's just necessarily a pure money situation. But, I'm not close to the situation either.
Numbskull News, good to see. Numbskull, we got to have you on the show sometime. Not so sure TCU is a no. Has that been made public? Nobody has made a public no yet. And nobody will. The Big 12 has been very good about keeping their laundry in-house. But it does get leaked of what certain schools are. And I was told from a board of trustees level that TCU was a no. So what I was told, whether or not that's true, I don't know. Guys have been right about several things, though. So when it comes to the Big 12, I tend to trust them. So. Shonsky says if your university can fully revenue share and get great NIL resources are going to be universities that will be involved with whatever happens. Jose says kissing a feral baby badger or just an alum's infant wearing a Wisconsin onesie. No, this is a furry badger. It's not feral. It's a rescue badger. But it's the actual animal badger, the American badger. I'm working on it. I've been working on it all weekend. If Kansas had the value, then they would already be there. Again, people said the same thing about Oregon and Washington, Numbskull. If Washington and Oregon had the value, they would already have been in the Big Ten. And it took them to the 11th hour to make that jump once the Big Ten and them had the numbers that they wanted. Numbskull News says, if TCU gets an invite, that would be shocking. I don't disagree with you. Again, I don't. We'll do the comparative, and you can come in there. You're a member, watch it, see how many points they match up with the Big Ten institutions. I haven't actually sat down and done it yet, but I can tell you right now, there's at least 3 they don't match.
Yeah, and listen, it would definitely be surprising, but I definitely would want heads up notice if possible, because the popcorn that we consume watching the SMU fans freak out as well as others would be worth just sitting on the sidelines watching.
Very true. I'm sure SMU fans would love that. If we are debating whether or not Clemson and FSU have the value, no Big 12 school has the value, let's be real. And no Big 12 school has the academic money combo as Notre Dame, Stanford, and Duke. Again, this is going to come down to beauty is in the eye of the beholder, value is in the eye of the beholder. What are you looking for in a conference expansion candidate? You're looking for athletics. For the Big Ten, you're also going to look towards the academics. You're going to look towards the research. I also strongly believe that they're looking more towards private institutions to try and avoid the public employee debacle. They previously did it with just Northwestern. I think it's going to be tough. Right now, they've only got Northwestern and USC as private institutions. If that comes in front of somebody again, that could end up being it might be helpful. It might be helpful for them to have a Duke, a Notre Dame, a Stanford, a Miami, and bump that up to where 25% of your school is a private institution.
The other thing too is what people this is out there for anyone to look at is when we're talking about values again. I'm not discounting the additive part of contracts before they get to a renewal phase. Just take a school that's one of those other 2 conferences, assuming that they're having a middle of the road or better season or a hype in the beginning of the season, see what their TV ratings are against when they play an SEC or a Big Ten school, right, of note. And then you can compare what that school's ratings are when they play a different team, whether a higher ranked team or a lower team in those conferences, and see the TV ratings. And you'll get an idea of like how a network really look at a school. It's like, what is the draw? Are they outgaining other schools in their own conference? Is it keeping on par with, when Florida State plays Florida, or this year, Florida State plays Alabama? How does that compare to all of the SEC schools? Because that's what you're really doing. You're not comparing what their ratings are going to be playing the schedule they're currently scheduling. You're comparing how they would match up and what that would do to their future schedule when you're thinking about the value in a new contract. Yeah, you have to make some projections, but listen, the most valuable brands out there are Notre Dame, Florida State, Clemson, Miami. That's the truth. Those are the most valuable brands out there. Why do we know they're the most valuable brands out there? They are getting paid unequal revenue share by the ACC. And they basically got a number on when they can get out and how much it'll cost. Those are your 4 most valuable brands. They're going to be your 4 most valuable brands. Do they get split 50-50? I can't see SEC taking 2 more Florida schools. I can't see Florida abiding that. So one of the Florida schools, whether it's Florida State or Miami, is going to have to go to the Big Ten. Yeah, I would be not quite as surprised as seeing TCU get an offer to the P2 if Miami went to the SEC for a number of reasons, recent and historical. So that that projects what I think would happen in that scenario. But also, I just predicted Florida State and why is genetics such a bitch? He's just a bitch made man. I mean, I can't tell you why. Dude, come on. What are you talking about? He's a stud. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. I went back and Grok fixed me, actually. There we go. There you go. That's genetics. That's one of his many sock accounts. If you're unaware of genetics storied past on message boards, it is really fascinating. He will create accounts to praise himself. So, unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that here at the College Football Mafia. So we would ask our fans. Faces are on camera, not hiding behind anything and fake relationships that we say that we have. I have relationships with Miami and other schools too. People know what I'm saying. I'm not hiding that I can't talk to people because of that. Moen's not hiding. Nate, Phillip, Greg Flugar, a bunch of other people. I'm sorry. I'm taking the dunk because I'm so sick of the guy and he's such a coward.
Numbskull News says Big Ten will expand when Notre Dame says yes. I don't disagree with you, Numbskull, and I think Notre Dame has the cachet at this point to hand a list to the Big Ten and say these are who we want, and the Big Ten would take them.
And I don't disagree with that statement or that Big Ten will expand if Notre Dame says yes, but I don't necessarily agree that it's only after they say yes, because I still personally think Notre Dame will be the last one in, because they will always get a seat, even if they're the odd number and changes somebody's gameplay up, whether they are the 21st team to the SEC, the 23rd team to the Big Ten. They're always going to get a spot, and I think they'll hold out until they really actually can't schedule.
Yeah, I tend to think differently. I think they'll probably come to the table with the deal they want. And I think that's going to be, hey, we're bringing these three schools with. We've got to have these three schools with us. We want some kind of concession. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. Never know. Wildcat cinch sack. Pretty good. Got the Wolfpack backpack, Wildcat cinch sack. JB says Virginia Tech is the Virginia market, not UVA. Doesn't matter ratings wise. UVA is the flagship school of the state of Virginia. And again, this would be about taking, if you're taking UNC, you want to get Virginia with them. It's considered the oldest rivalry in the South. It boosts your academics, gets you into the DC metro area. Yes, Virginia's athletics are terrible. Nobody's denying that. They do not have great athletics at the University of Virginia. North Carolina, basketball, we don't know how Belichick's going to do in football there. I don't hold out a whole lot of hope, but if it comes down to it, the SEC is going to take Virginia over Virginia Tech. And it's not because it's not – listen, it's money. It comes down to money and research and politics, and people just graduate from Virginia Law School and move right into Washington, D.C. to become lobbyists. So.
And JB, you should go back and check on the channel. There's one of the ACC reviews that Utes done. And this past year, like, Virginia Tech hasn't really helped their cause with their ratings, which are surprising, actually, with the down cycle they had. Like, Virginia Tech could do themselves a lot of good of getting back on a winning track, because their ratings were considerably low relative to the rest of the ACC even this past year. I know, like, it's been a little bit of a struggle. I think the brand's amazing and probably deserves better than they're getting from all the realignment conversation.
Numbskull News, no East Coast state is more appealing than Texas for media companies. Again, if you're if you're the SEC, you have Texas. You've got Texas and Texas A&M. You don't need another school in Texas. Could you take another one? Yeah, you theoretically could, but you don't need one. The Big Ten would need one in Texas if they wanted to be a national conference. They need a school in Texas. They need a school in Florida. Having a school in North Carolina wouldn't hurt. Having a school in Georgia wouldn't hurt. Potentially having a school in Kansas wouldn't hurt. Colorado is another one. Denver's a big media market. But I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that on the whole, the East Coast ACC brands are going to be worth a little more than the Big 12 brands. And it's just because they're on the East Coast.
For sure. Listen, the Big Ten is currently, they turned into a national conference that does not have a school in the second, third. New York is a loose one, so we'll just give you that one. The second, third, eighth, and ninth size states in the country. So 4 of the top 10, they don't have, they're a national conference that doesn't have a school in 4 of the top 10 population states.
And there's no bigger national brand than Notre Dame. Conundrum says Sun Devils Tucson Futon. It's the U of A Wildcats. Tucson Futon. Okay. Tucson Futon. Jose says Atlanta home values have tripled. They have in the suburbs. Very fast growing. Coca-Cola is based there. lots of money in Atlanta and North Carolina. I have a friend who moved from Ohio to North Carolina for work, and he loves it there. Can't get enough of it. He's right down the road from UNC. I've got to get down there and see him at some point. Steel Austin says, after SEC takes the ACC schools they want, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to expand their footprint west to include the Mountain Time Zone in addition to Kansas. Could add Colorado, Utah, ASU. I don't know about that. That is, again, if we do a Contenders SEC edition, we'll talk about that. But for the most part, the SEC has wanted to stay contiguous. They want to remain a regional conference. And I don't blame them necessarily. I think it's a lot easier being a regional conference. If you can get the value in the conference, which they obviously can. Vox Pandaro says, and Kansas is the flagship school of Kansas. Absolutely is. Numbskull News says TCU doesn't bring the DFW market, only a piece of. Again, if it was TCU, it's basically because of the carriage fees getting into Texas. If it is TCU.
And yes, Numbskull, because I know what you're going to say. I think I know because I do watch your show. The carriage fees are going to eventually dissipate and go away, but they're not gone away yet. So there is still a value in getting a partner onto the network. Those contracts are already there. So for a period of time, it's revenue before you ramp up whatever it might be, a direct-to-consumer product that makes the whole cable carriage fee things go away in some form.
James Davis, I like the profile picture. FSU is worth more to the big because they get into Florida, and the SEC is already in Florida. Again, I think the hardest part for both Florida State and Miami is the fact they're both in Florida. If there was one school in Florida, jackpot. But I think the fact that you've got two and you can basically bid against each other, compete against each other, I think that hurts both schools, quite frankly.
Yeah, to a degree, for sure. You also have two schools that are in the, even with Florida State having a down year, two schools that are in the top 25 of all TV audiences this past season. In a world where those two conferences have 34 total schools, and those two schools are exceeding multiple schools within those conferences. So, but their bargaining power is not quite the same as if they had just had the state to themselves, for sure.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like North Carolina. Yes, Duke is there inside the state of North Carolina, but they're clearly head and shoulders the top brand, and then in the state of North Carolina. And with Florida, I know Florida Gators have had a down year recently, but I mean,
it's really sad. It's quite tragic.
You've got 3 top 20 brands in Florida. John, GT is a sleeping giant. Great recruits in Georgia, plus big money in a large metro area. Yes, I think you do have to look at projections and see if this holds value to you in the future. This is an investment. Vox Quindaro, I am loyal to the Big 12, no question. But if the Big gave us the Big I, we're gone. I think if the SEC gave you the Big I, you'd be gone too. John Dry says the Big 12 is blue collar, not blue blood in football. Got a couple national championships there. You're probably your 2 biggest blue bloods would be Kansas, Colorado, and maybe BYU. When does this show come out, Moen? Stay tuned to Twitter. We will make an announcement. We will let you know. I still have a lot of it to put together. We just got the data point sorted out. It might be Wednesday or Thursday this week. It'll be a members-only live stream, but we will let you know.
That means it's tomorrow.
Actually, we'll try not to schedule it on Thursday, because on Thursday nights you should be watching College Football Express with Rock and Rant and Miami Flow.
Appreciate that. We had a G5 guy on this last week from the G5 Hive. It was pretty interesting to get that perspective, as well as some guys who do a different Big Ten podcast. An actual Gopher was on our on the show.
I watched it. It was pretty good. And I'm glad you liked my Jim Phillips, Kelly Green gaggers.
It's awesome.
Analyzing the Big 12 contenders for P2 realignment is fascinating. The ACC talk is too overdone, and the Big 12 will be looked at after the ACC. Again, yeah, the first one's going to be a Big 10 fits, and it's going to include some Big 12 schools. But if it works out well and you guys like it, for members, we could do an SEC version as well. James Davis says Florida State versus LSU was over 7 million. And I believe LSU against USC pulled a pretty huge number as well.
Yep.
Daniel Gygax says, Moen, you brought up the Ivy League library group. Stanford is also a part of it. Yes, Stanford is, Duke is, Johns Hopkins is, University of Chicago is. University of Chicago used to be a member of the predecessor to the Big Ten Academic Alliance, the CIC. They left to become part of the IPLC. If you added a Duke and a Stanford and got them into the Big Ten Academic Alliance, it would certainly give a boost. All boats would rise with that tide.
Oh, Lord, you just predicted that University of Chicago is bringing back football.
I did. And they're going to dominate again. The University of Chicago Maroons. If KU is left out, they might be the only historic blue blood in either football or basketball left out. Again, you're going to find BYU fans are going to disagree with you a little bit in that. But I'm not going to take a stance on it. So, most valuable, but not the first two off the board. Can we make distinction too, i.e. UNC and UVA? You're right. UNC and UVA are not the most valuable. Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, Miami. Those are the four most valuable. But what's most valuable to the SEC, what's most desirable to them, is North Carolina and Virginia.
Value is what somebody's willing to put a price on it. You may not like a certain type of car. Other people would pay a fortune for it, right?
Absolutely. What's a new word for dynasty since Penn State wrestling has eclipsed it? That's now 12 natties in the last 15 years, and Coach Cal is only 45. Congratulations to the Penn State Nittany Lions. You're right. They have been an extremely dominant team in wrestling.
I guess you could call yourselves the Yankees of wrestling, but I don't know if you want that comparison. But that's like kind of the run that the Yankees made back in the day years ago, right? It's kind of to however many national World Series championships they've got.
Yeah, Penn State. We did have a championship wrestler from Ohio State at 141, though. So we did bring one individual title home this weekend. So congratulations to Penn State on their team victory and all their individual victories as well. In wrestling, they'll probably just continue. Let me go back up here. I saw Rec Talk up here, and I wanted to grab his comment, but I forgot to star it. Well, Rec Talk, I can't find it now.
I found it.
Okay. There you go. Is college football now becoming the movie The Firm with Tom Cruise?
What secrets are going into the ocean never to come back? The ESPN grant the rights?
I'm just trying to figure out who would play what in that movie.
Conference realignment is the thing that makes Rec Talk really happy. It brings him such total joy. He loves every part of it. It's his favorite conversation.
I love Rec Talk. If you guys want to watch an entertaining college football show, he's way more entertaining than we are. He'll put the blue glasses on and he'll start talking shit. And it is high entertainment for me.
You know, Rec Talk needs an NIL deal from Dunkin' Donuts like the Georgia Bulldogs need an NIL deal from Uber.
And we didn't even get into that. The alternative hypothesis confession. Moen is my sock account with that Art Deco profile picture. You're probably right. I do like Art Deco. Very cool profile picture. That probably would be my sock. I got the Keith Moore most valuable, but no, we did that one. Sorry. DLB says if Notre Dame joins the Big, they will become another Northwestern. I don't think so. I don't think Notre Dame has anything to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Shonsky says usually in a conference, if your team is bad in football, they're usually good in basketball, and vice versa. Why does the Big have so many that are bad in both? It can't be money problems. Some of it is just bad athletic directors. Honestly, there have been a lot of bad athletic directors in the Big Ten. And they've made bad hires. Bad hire after bad hire after bad hire. But when you hit big. I mean, Indiana this week, I don't want to upset any West Virginia fans, but they landed a coach they're confident in. They landed Signetti last year, took them to the playoffs. Just because you're at the bottom this year doesn't mean you can't be at the top next year. You just got to hire the right people and have the right mentality. Rec Talk says there's a Tom Cruise movie for any situation. Okay. Favorite Tom Cruise movie, Rock and Rant?
Oh, I actually probably would go with The Firm because I've probably seen it the most amount of times, and Top Gun has become almost too cliche in its way. But the latest version was pretty excellent, I'll say. How about yourself?
I'm going to say Magnolia. He was robbed of the Oscar in that. Frank T.J. Mackey. Michael Caine had no business winning that Oscar. That Oscar should have went to Tom Cruise. His best performance.
Yeah. That was an excellent movie. A really good soundtrack too from Amy Mann from Till Tuesday. But it's one of those I don't watch it a lot. Like it's not like a repeat.
Oh, you can't because it's like
it's freaking hard. Long. It's hard. It's a hard movie.
It's a hard movie to get through, but it's got some great performances, and it's got Tom Cruise's best performance. Vox Quindaro says KU is miserable cultural fit with SEC. Okay. Just going through here, guys. We got about another 3 minutes. We're going to get out of here. If anything you want to absolutely have to be read, will have to be a super chat. I do want to thank Ryan Willie and Heartbreak 25 for their super chats tonight. They are much appreciated. John Dry says Tech plays Arkansas Thursday in the Sweet 16. No matter what, it seems like we play Arkansas in every sport since the 1920s. Old Southwest Conference. Tawtown Hawk says Rock Chalk, 'tis football season, like contemporaries. Hey, brother, it's been football season for us before we even tournament started. So.
Yeah, man. Spring football, a lot of pro days going on right now. I know Cam Ward's pro day is tomorrow in Miami. But I know a bunch of other guys have had their pro days in the last week or so and will in the next week. So we're just a few weeks away from Portal 2 time.
The Last Samurai. That's what Numbskull News thanks for Tom Cruise. He also said Oblivion is a sleeper Cruise movie. The other one I like is Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow is an excellent movie, which I never caught the first time, and I've now definitely seen it a few times.
Same. I passed on seeing it in the theater like twice because I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan, and I watched it later on when it was at home release, and I was like, God, that was really good. That was a really good science fiction movie.
Yeah. Plus, he was teamed up with an actress I like. So,
I love that movie. That is so Big 12. A Few Good Men, absolutely. Great performance by Demi Moore as well. Also got robbed for an Oscar.
A lot of people can't handle the truth about college football realignment and Moen's prediction that University of Chicago is going back to football.
By the way, if you haven't seen it yet, The Substance with Demi Moore, which she was nominated for, was excellent. Excellent horror dark comedy. James Davis likes Jack Reacher. No, I couldn't buy him as Jack Reacher. I just couldn't do it. I can't buy a 5'6" guy kicking a bunch of people's asses. I like the young Tom Cruise in the with Rebecca De Mornay, Risky Business.
Risky Business, yeah. He was in a few good movies. Yeah, The Outsiders too was when he was really young.
Legend. He also was in Legend, the unicorn and the devil. Taps. Not bad. Taps wasn't bad. By the way, if you're watching on demand, put your favorite Tom Cruise movie in here. We'll do some movie stuff. Last week we were talking about Conan, and now because of that,
to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of your women.
No, it's wild. That almost sounds like you milking. The beat is almost like they're milking you, whatever the heck that is. If you put your sounder on, you'll hear that they're phonetically sound like they're the same beat.
Rec Talk wants to know who is the worst AD in the country.
That's a good show.
Great question. Trying to think here. Let me think. See, I'm thinking of some bad ACC teams, but they've come up recently.
Right. Look, I think that San Diego State guy should learn to shut up.
That's true. That's definitely
as an example. I don't know that makes him the worst athletic director, but he's had two instances at least that people like me who should have no idea who he is, we know who he is.
The answer is the athletic director at Purdue. He hired Ryan Walters, and then he fired Ryan Walters and brought in Barry Odom. I don't agree with the Odom hire. I think that's just a bad hire. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything, get anything off the ground at Purdue. And by saying that, I almost certainly guarantee they're going to beat Ohio State in a night game at Ohio State Stadium.
It's funny that you say that because on the show with Flo, I actually said that I think UNLV, not of people who like replaced their coach because the coach got fired, right? But somebody who had to replace a coach because theoretically their coach upgraded, went up a tier, up a conference. I think UNLV is the only school that might have actually upgraded over who they lost with hiring Dan Mullen versus
Barry Odom
going to Purdue.
Yeah. So I'm going with Purdue. Rec Talk. Thank you for the super chat. I'll play you a little song and drink you a little whiskey.
Like all the jolly good fellows, I drink my whiskey clear. I'm a rambling wreck from Georgia, taking a hell of an engineer.
I have a couple big bottles. I'll just keep refilling that smaller one. Just easier to pull from.
Mo, the Big Ten expert we know is out there telling everyone that you have guaranteed that Ohio State's going to lose to Purdue.
I know. Unfortunately, if it's a night game at Ross-Ade, that will happen. Cruise is the greatest movie star in history. Jerry Maguire was fire. We'll have to agree to disagree there. Tom Cruise was great in Tropic Thunder, absolutely.
Yes, he was.
Grossman, he was fantastic in that.
And the Mission Impossible movies have been, several of them have been really entertaining and crazy. You got to give the guy props for doing his own stunts.
I give him credit for doing his own stunts, but it's pretty easy when you're 5'6" and weigh 140 pounds.
Yeah. I still am jumping out of no. You couldn't get me to jump out of a perfectly good plane, even like this year.
Have you seen American Made with Tom Cruise? I thought it was great. You know what? I actually did like him in that one too. He didn't look or anything like the guy that it's based off of, but that was a pretty enjoyable movie. I love that movie. That is so Big 12. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. We just wanted to get on here and talk to you guys, leave some comments. Make sure you're following us both on Twitter. Rock and Rant, give them both your Twitter accounts, please.
Rock and Rant, as you see on the screen, and CFB Express spelled incorrect, is the one for the new channel. And feel free to come at me. I respect people who don't agree with me, but don't block you. So I can have a debate and disagree in civil form. You know, that's what actual real men do.
Absolutely. And follow me on Mowing After Dark. I am the mayor of Titty City, just in case you were wondering. That still holds true. Also follow us at the CFB Mafia on Twitter. That's our main channel Twitter account. We will figure out what day. It might not be this week. If we can do it this week, it would probably be Wednesday for that members only stream where we're going to take a look at the contenders for the Big Ten. But just keep following us on Twitter, checking the community tab here on YouTube. We'll put all that good stuff there. For myself, for Rock and Rant, peace out. See you next Sunday.